Great day, everyone. Terilee Harrison here with my first edition ever of Let's Talk BRI, my new live stream podcast where we're focusing on being bold, real, and impactful. I'm here and I want to introduce you to someone who is very important to me in my life, and I'm going to introduce you to him formally. But he's just also my friend. Guy and his wife they're my friends for many years. I've been very blessed to have them in my life. But you need to know what he's all about. So hi Guy, welcome.
Hey, Terilee, it's awesome to be here. Whoever we're speaking to, just may God bless you as you sit down with us and enjoy this time together. You know, before we start every session or interview, I always like to just pray to the Lord for our audience that, Father, you truly bless them.
Sure.
And I pray, Father, that you will connect us with the people that need to hear what we have to say, and that the heart of God will speak through us now as we get together. Terilee, just thank you so much for all you've done. Wishing you well.
No, thank you. Thank you for those thoughts and prayers. But let me introduce you all to Guy, because he is way more than just a family friend. Guy Morrell-Stinson is a visionary kingdom builder. He's the founder of multiple kingdom ministry initiatives, such as the Empowered Kingdom, One Kingdom Alliance, and One Kingdom TV. Guy is an international speaker, author, and empowerment coach. Guy responded to a sense of calling from a very young age and has dedicated his life to seeking truth and wisdom from the Bible for this time. This led to understanding of the importance of the kingdom for this time, especially for Christian leaders, entrepreneurs, and business people. The mission of One Kingdom Business Academy is to strengthen Christians in business as a ministry so that they can be economically empowered and effective leaders in the marketplace based on kingdom values and biblical wisdom. I do love this, Guy, because I was like, well, what's your bio? What's your title? Guy sees no title or self-recognition, preferring to direct people to God the Father and Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. So this is my friend, everybody. Guy, you have so many things that you're up to, and I would just love it if you could share a bit about what you're up to and who you serve and how you serve them. And there may be people who are like, they've been looking for you, and here you are.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, one thing about me is you'll hear the accent is deep Southern Texas. We from way
that's
south,
Southern
right?
Texas. All right, y'all.
Right. But God has a way of not doing anything by accident. He knows exactly what's coming in the future. And when I grew up in South Africa as a young child, I knew there was a calling on my life. And when I was about 20 years old, people out of the blue would say, hey, Guy, you've got to meet person X or Y, and so on. And as I began to meet these people, I began to realize, but hang on, I'm looking at people who've got a calling on their life. It's not recognized by the church. All of them were outcast, but all of them had this incredibly profound vision, which spoke of the future, which spoke of the world is heading in a certain direction. And there's going to be this huge time of crisis and turmoil and change and collapse and struggle. And somehow they were introducing me to them, that were preparing, in a sense, a puzzle piece to play in the future. And I realized that God knew there was something big coming. South Africa is, in a sense of, you know, I don't want to lean too much to the woo-woo or go overboard, but there are principles that carry out through life. And one of them is that a lot of what we do is prophetic. And so we can see this just in family relationships. When a parent says to a kid, oh, you stupid, oh, shut up, or whatever, that power of word being spoken over the child is prophetic. It creates a prophetic future. Whereas if you wanted to create a different prophecy or a different prophetic future, you would say, hey, I believe in you, I encourage you, you're awesome, and so on, right? And so the conversations that we were having in South Africa were very, very prophetic. We knew 40 years ago that America is going to go through certain things. It can't sustain what it's up to, and that these changes would come to pass. Anyhow, that all leads me to 2019, 2020, where you know what happened. And during that time, I said, okay, God, this is great. If they're going to shut down, I've got lots of Bible study and prayer time. But I went to the cupboard and I said, God, I want to know the answer to 3 questions. What exactly is a Christian? What exactly is the church? And what exactly, Jesus, are you commanding, or did you command that we must follow? And the reason I prayed that was because everybody has an opinion. And in my mind, I wanted to know, but what is God's opinion? And what is God's truth? And so I said, God, I want to understand through your eyes. I don't want to understand through anybody else's. And so I went to the Gospels and I began to read line by line. And what came out immediately was Jesus was kingdom centered. And there's over 100 mentions of kingdom in the Gospels alone. And in that, you see Jesus teaches it's within us, it's in our midst. We need to go out and preach it. It's in the Our Father prayer. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The parables point to the kingdom. He states it as his mission to preach the kingdom. And so as soon as I said, oh, okay, if Jesus said we must preach kingdom, I'm going to preach kingdom. And then it was as if all the puzzle pieces of my life came together with that. Anyhow, all of that lands to say that we're in a time of which is biblically incredibly prophetic. I don't know if you watch prophecy, but if you go back 10 years, they would be saying 90% of prophecy has been fulfilled. Whereas you come back in the short time and there's only something like 1% still to be fulfilled, if at all. There's this rapid acceleration of the fulfillment of prophecy. There's a rapid evidence of everything in the Bible is true. It's absolutely profound. But how does that apply to us today? Well, the way it applies to us today is to understand that God is not a fool. Kingdom of heaven is not caught by surprise. They knew, as evidence to me when I was in my 20s, that this time is coming. And heaven doesn't sit around and say, oh, golly gee, we don't know what we're going to do. But heaven sits around and says, okay, well, let's put a plan and a strategy in place and let's equip people for the roles for that time. And so heaven is perfectly prepared. In other words, we have the option, which goes back to Genesis. You have the tree of life, which God says, by the way, hang on to this. Or you have the trees of knowledge of good and evil. And the trees of knowledge of good and evil will all crash, will all die, and will all surely fail. So our priority in this time is to say, God, what is your solution? What is your heart? What is your direction? In a sense, what is your storehouse? What is your ark? And how do we use that to get through this time? And that's my work. My work is to teach about these things. The kingdom of heaven spans every aspect of life. So it doesn't matter if it's business, ministry, finances, investing, everything. The kingdom of heaven has a superior wisdom for everything. So anyhow, I could talk a whole lot more about that. But as a summary, that's what brings me to the table. Now, Terilee, before we started this, I said I think we should actually message to our audience that there is a purpose for you in life. And maybe the reason for us sitting at this table is simply just to echo that and to encourage you and say, as heaven is detailed and has prepared everything, the question is, how is it preparing you? And Terilee, I know that you, just before we were talking, were telling me about how you feel you've come to a stage where your preparation is now maturing. And I'd love to share that with the audience too.
I love it that we're chatting back and forth about what we're our callings and where we feel that we want to serve people. Guy knew me 10 years ago when I was just starting to feel called to tell my story of what God had done for me in my life. I had just written a book and was beginning to do speaking, and I felt really convicted 10 years ago, like that it was my life's mission to be telling the story. And I have to tell you all, in all transparency, vulnerability, whatever you want to say, I literally like set it aside, really. And Guy, in the process, I even became ill, was told I was dying soon, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And like, that didn't bring me back to my mission, believe it or not. Like, believe it or not, like, I found out I wasn't dying soon. Here I am. Thank God that wasn't the story. And I don't know if it would become more serious if I really would have like caught that attention, but it's back at the forefront for me now. And what has happened in the last 10 years is, when Guy met me, I was a very local person, living and serving locally. We lived in a city, the same city, about an hour above Los Angeles. And I didn't have tools to be anything more than local. I didn't have experience to be anything more than local. I knew I wanted to help people overcome shame. I wanted to share my story, empower other people to share their stories. I didn't know Guy. I didn't have any of the tools to do it. And so I apologize. Like, what was God? God must have been like, what are you thinking? But at the same time, I was gathering everything I needed to be here today, to be able to. So I'm sure he was shaking his head to a point. I'm sure he was shaking his head to a point, Guy, but yet he knew what was all transpiring. And so I have repicked up my vision, and am rewriting my story in a new form, starting the BRI Talks global speaker community, so that people, business people, nonprofit leaders, faith-based small business owners and entrepreneurs, there's a place for them to come and own and embrace their story, be able to come build business relationships, grow their business. And I feel like this is what I was made for. This is it. And I'm grateful for this time, and I'm grateful that that you are in my life in this way at this time, so that we can help others know about our shared visions, and just bring all the more people to this place. Yeah.
It's interesting for me to watch you, and you watching me, and we all learn from each other. But I think that my whole vision or understanding of life has changed so dramatically over the years. And we have two systems. Jesus says you cannot serve God and mammon. And in other words, there are two systems out there. There are two spiritual forces out there. There's the force of God, and there's a satanic force of mammon as well. And these play against us. And 20 years ago, I realized I kept on wanting to get into ministry, kept on finding myself pushed back into business, and this frustrated me no end, because I've got the sense of calling. And then I went away for a weekend and prayed about it, and what I felt God saying to me was that business is a ministry. And so I started praying and saying, well, God, if it's a ministry, then you must have a heart for it, you must have a wisdom for it, a purpose, and please teach me. And so that's been a 40-year journey. But what's coming into focus during this time for me is how, and we were talking about this before we got on this interview, of how dirty Satan gets with people, and how filthy he can get into the gutter with people, to lie, steal, kill, and destroy in every way whatsoever. Now, part of the effect of that is that he dumps shame all over us. And he says, I was in the desert and I wasted an opportunity, or I could have done so much more. But what we need to also understand is that God is perfect in every way, and he uses all things for the good of those that love God and are called according to his purpose. In other words, if your life is a life in which you feel there's a calling, but you've been dumped on, everything has been messed up, and so on, know that that is part of your boot camp. It's part of your training. It's part of, remember, people came out of Egypt, and they didn't just walk out of Egypt and knock, knock, there's the keys to the promised land. They walked out of Egypt and then they wandered in the desert for a whole long time. But the reason for that was that their hearts were being purified. They were being equipped. As you die on the Egyptian level, you are being raised up on the spiritual level. So as you're dying and Egypt gets further and further in the background, the promised land is coming closer and closer into the foreground. And at the right time, you cross the Jordan River. And so I'm hoping, for our audience, we'll be having more discussions like this, that you will find encouragement, because the one thing I can say to you is that if you are called, heaven marks you and hell hounds you. And so if you are called, the typical mark I look for is, has a person been through the fire? Have they been through the fire? Because that is what purifies, and that is what equips you, and that is what gives you spiritual backbone and makes you ready for the time. So here we are. I want to hear more about BRI Talks. I know you've got a vision to bring people together. What are you hoping it will do for them?
Thanks for asking.
Of course.
I'm excited. I know we're both passionate about business people, and this is a platform for business people to come and share their story, their cause, or their method. So it can be that it's your testimony, your story but it can also be, there's so many amazing, as we know, nonprofit organizations out there doing amazing work in the world. It could be that this is their message of their cause, why their cause is so important to them and what it is and how we can help. But Guy, I mean, it can be a faith-based accountant, faith-based realtor who is just coming and sharing their story of how they help people save money on their taxes, right? And who they are and how they got to be in it and why they're passionate about, right? It's a place for all that. And it's a platform where people can be speaking online. I am not here to say, I'm telling people I'm starting my own TED Talks, Guy. And I'm not here to say I'm going to overtake TED. Like, they've had like 40 million views, but you know what? Just wait. Let's see what God does. Let's see what God does. But this is going to be a channel of story and a channel of people having a huge impact in the world. And inside of it, I've wrapped in it, it's opportunity for speaker training. You don't have to be a speaker to come. We're going to teach you how to do your speech. We're going to have networking opportunities. We're going to have, think of Toastmasters, Terilee style, Guy. We're going to have Story Power Hour once a month where people can come and practice their presentation and receive positive support from their peers and from me. And I want it to be like the community that people love to attend, never want to leave, and where they're just coming in and we're all cheering each other on in our various missions. We all have the things that we are called to do and serve in this life. And I
love it. I love it. The going back to what I was saying earlier about the two powers, the principalities, there's God, the Holy Spirit, and there's the spirit of Mammon. The spirit of Mammon will never point you towards your true gifting and your true potential. It will always give you the substitute fruit. And so one of the most profound ways it's done this is to say your road to success is self-effort and self-reliance and pushing. And so it's take your gun, go out and be independent, all this kind of thing. But it's a messaging that comes through everything. It's a messaging that comes through the media, it comes through competition, it comes through politics, it comes through our education. But when we start realizing there's a higher level of messaging, it's the messaging of the kingdom, which is the message of the heart of God, which is the message of love. Now, the competitive mammon paradigm is headbutting, may the most aggressive win. Okay. But the messaging of heaven is, may those who love each other be lifted up together. And it's more powerful when you actually understand it. It's more powerful in business. It's more powerful in absolutely every way whatsoever. The Bible puts a lot of emphasis on the word. In the beginning, God spoke, and it was, right? Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. Power of life and death is in the tongue. But when you start getting people to talk at a different level of messaging, you start healing the soul of the people, of families, of business, and ultimately of the nation. And so I wouldn't feel intimidated by TED Talks or anything like that in any way whatsoever, because they are speaking at a level. And what we are saying here is that God calls us to speak at a different level.
Yeah.
And it's healing, it's holistic, it brings people together, it empowers. And I'm watching the time, we're at 20 minutes, so you can wrap up.
We could keep going, everybody. We could keep going, but we won't. So, Guy, how can people find you? I know that that we'd like to share this, but go ahead, tell us more about One Kingdom Alliance as we wrap up.
Well, it goes to what I've just said, and that is that we have incredible power in the kingdom, but we can't exercise that power if you don't understand that power. That power is in unity. Jesus prayed for unity in John 7. I pray for them, Father, that they'll be one in us as I am in you. And he says, then the world will know that you have sent me. There is power in unity. And so that's what alliances are about. In an alliance, as Jesus talks of the body of Christ, okay, an alliance is the hand, alliance of the foot, alliance of the brain. And that unlocks our gifting from heaven. That unlocks the kingdom of heaven within us. So we should be the head and not the tail. We should be above and never below. We should be lending to the nations and not borrowing. But Mammon has lied to us and taught us paradigms which fragment us and break us apart. And so One Kingdom Alliance is about understanding kingdom principles, your business, your family, your finances, and your future. Would love to see you there. Otherwise, the empoweredkingdom.com, and that will have links to the other ministries.
Okay, so is it okay if we talk about what we're doing on One Kingdom TV? Can you tell?
You may, sure, absolutely.
Tell me.
So one Kingdom TV is, in a sense, in a partnership with BRI Talks. And the vision of One Kingdom TV is really to give voice to those who are called and have a message for the kingdom. And that means life coaches. That means sometimes it could be a teacher. It could be a father who's invented something. It could be somebody who's creative. You will know in your spirit if God has given you something, because it's always there. It's there all the days of your life, right? So One Kingdom TV is, again, to give voice to the voice of the kingdom, whoever it comes through. And again, we could talk about that a whole deal, but we are looking for partnership coaches. If you are a Christian coach, which, by the way, I feel every Christian should become a Christian life coach. But if you are with a clear message from the Lord, a clear impact for people's lives, then consider joining us as a channel partner or a host. And we would love to hear from you, see what God's doing in your life, if that interests you.
Awesome. I encourage you, if you feel that that's something you're called to do, please reach out to Guy. I know he would love to chat with you. As we close, some of you may be like, okay, I'm hearing about BRI Talks. What is it? There's where you can find some information. It's letstalkbri.com. And I too would love to chat with you. So Guy, thank you for being here today. I'm sure we'll talk many more times and we have so much to share. I'm so grateful to have you in my life and to be able to point people to your ministry. So grateful just to have you personally in my life as well. I thank God. We were separated for a while I was off in other parts of the world, and God did us. He did us a good one, and we got to live 10, 15 minutes away from each other for 18 months when we returned from abroad. And that was wonderful, and still spending time together today. So Guy, thank you so much. And we will look forward to seeing you all again next time at Let's Talk BRI.
Wonderful. Thank you, Terilee. God bless you.